Imagine a father, standing against the world, willing to risk everything to save his son. Now, imagine another father, one who sacrificed his son to save the world. Could Joe Biden's controversial pardon of Hunter Biden echo the divine story of Jesus Christ's ultimate act of forgiveness? Today, we'll explore the scandal of grace, the cost of love, and the tension between justice and mercy. Stay with us. This story may redefine how you see forgiveness. What if Biden's pardon of Hunter isn't just a political act but a reflection of deeper truths about human relationships, justice, and redemption? And what if the grace offered by Jesus Christ confronts these very questions in the ultimate way? This isn't just history or theology, it's your story, too. Like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Is forgiveness ever truly fair? Let's dive into this thought-provoking journey together. Forgiveness, scandal, redemption. These words ignite fierce debates, whether about Hunter Biden or Jesus Christ. In both cases, one thing stands out: a father's decision to act in the face of overwhelming criticism. Today, we'll uncover how these two stories, separated by millennia, intersect in ways that challenge our understanding of grace and justice. Ready to explore the heart of these stories? Let's go deeper. Hunter Biden's story isn't just about politics or law, it's a story of a father who made a bold choice. And Jesus' story? It's the foundation of grace itself. What do these acts of pardon reveal about love, power, and sacrifice? As we peel back the layers, ask yourself, are these acts of mercy fair, or do they defy fairness? Let's discuss in the comments below. Stay tuned as we connect the controversial threads of Biden's political pardon and Jesus' divine pardon. By the end of this video, you'll see how these stories illuminate timeless truths about justice, mercy, and the human condition. Don't forget to subscribe and share your take. Is this grace in action, or a scandal too far? Presidential pardons are among the most debated acts of governance. But when a president pardons their own child, it becomes personal and explosive. In December 2024, Joe Biden issued a full and unconditional pardon for Hunter Biden. The move sparked immediate backlash, with critics calling it an abuse of power. But beyond the politics lies a deeper question. What drives a father to make such a decision? Now consider another story. Over 2,000 years ago, a carpenter from Nazareth offered humanity the ultimate pardon, not for one person, but for all. Jesus Christ forgave sins through his sacrifice, reconciling justice and mercy in a way that continues to provoke awe and debate. Could these two acts of pardon share common threads, or are they worlds apart? This video isn't about taking sides. It's about understanding how grace and justice collide in profound ways, from the halls of political power to the foundations of faith. By examining Biden's decision and Jesus' act of forgiveness, we'll uncover universal themes of love, scandal, and redemption that shape human history and our lives today. Hunter Biden's story is deeply personal yet public, exposing the vulnerabilities of a family in the spotlight. Jesus' story is both intimate and universal, offering forgiveness to individuals while reshaping humanity's relationship with God. These parallels raise profound questions. How do we define fairness? Is forgiveness earned, or is it a gift? By the end of this journey, you'll see how both acts of pardon reflect the complexities of justice and the power of unconditional love. Join us as we unpack these powerful narratives. Don't forget to comment below. What's your take on these two controversial pardons? Number 1. The story of Biden's pardon. Hunter Biden's legal troubles began with accusations of tax fraud and gun possession while struggling with addiction. In June 2024, he was convicted, facing years in prison. Joe Biden, despite public pressure, initially vowed not to intervene, stating he believed in the justice system. But as sentencing approached, something changed. On December 10th, Joe Biden announced a full pardon for his son, citing selective persecution and politics infecting justice. He described Hunter's case as a targeted attack due to his family name, sparking accusations of hypocrisy and favoritism. Republicans labeled it a two-tier justice system, while some Democrats questioned the precedent set. Presidential pardons often come with controversy. Biden's decision mirrored similar debates during Donald Trump's presidency when Trump pardoned close allies. The criticism of Biden was swift. Could this act erode public trust in the justice system? Or was it an act of compassion in a broken legal framework? Public reaction was divided. Supporters argued that Hunter's addiction and personal struggles humanized the case, while critics claimed the pardon undermined accountability. Biden framed his decision as a father's act of mercy. But was it justice? The story took on a life of its own, dominating headlines. Joe Biden's own words complicated matters. For months, he had publicly stated he wouldn't pardon his son. The reversal not only sparked political firestorms but also personal questions about loyalty, ethics, and integrity. Was this a moment of weakness, or a demonstration of strength in prioritizing family? Hunter Biden's struggles with addiction, public shame, and legal battles offer a stark image of vulnerability in the public eye. He admitted to past mistakes, stating he would never take this clemency for granted. His story reminds us of the complexities of redemption and the costs of mercy. Historically, presidential pardons have been used for political allies and close associates. Biden's pardon of his son marked a new chapter in this tradition, blending personal and political motivations in unprecedented ways. Critics argue it sets a dangerous precedent, while supporters view it as an act of justice correcting injustice. The legal implications of the pardon were significant. A full pardon erases Hunter's convictions, restoring his rights. Yet, the controversy remained. Did this undermine the very system Biden claimed to uphold? The debate highlighted tensions between legal frameworks and personal morality. Joe Biden's justification was deeply emotional. He described feeling as though the attacks on Hunter were also attacks on him as a father. This intimate connection blurred the lines between justice and love, raising questions about whether such decisions can ever be truly impartial. As we transition to the next act, consider this. Was Joe Biden's pardon a scandal of favoritism or an act of grace in a flawed system? How does this decision resonate with the biblical narrative of forgiveness? Share your thoughts below, and let's continue exploring this profound parallel. Number 2. The story of Jesus' pardon. Over 2,000 years ago, another act of pardon shocked the world, not from a father to a son, but from a savior to humanity. Jesus Christ, accused and crucified despite his innocence, extended forgiveness to all. In Luke 23 verse 34, he prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," even as he hung on the cross. His act of grace redefined justice, offering salvation to those who had done nothing to earn it. Unlike Biden's pardon, which focused on one individual, Jesus' pardon was universal. It transcended personal relationships, reaching into the hearts of every person, past, present, and future. John 3 verse 16 declares, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life." This wasn't a pardon born of politics. It was born of divine love and a mission to reconcile humanity with God. But Jesus' pardon wasn't without controversy. Religious leaders of his time were outraged, accusing him of blasphemy for claiming the authority to forgive sins, Mark 2 verse 7. To them, forgiveness was earned through adherence to the law. Jesus' grace disrupted their understanding of justice, presenting a radical alternative where mercy triumphed over judgment. It was a scandal in its time, much like Biden's decision is today. Grace and justice collided at the cross. The punishment for humanity's sin, death, was carried out, but not on those who deserved it. Instead, Jesus bore the penalty himself, fulfilling the requirements of justice while extending forgiveness. Romans 5 verse 8 explains, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." This act of substitution remains the ultimate example of sacrificial love. Jesus' pardon is different from any earthly act of forgiveness because it requires no strings attached. Ephesians 2 verses 8 to 9 reminds us, "For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." This contrasts sharply with human justice systems, where forgiveness often comes with conditions or expectations of repayment. The cost of Jesus' pardon was immense, not political backlash or public scrutiny, but his very life. Isaiah 53 verse 5 foretells this sacrifice. "He was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." His death was the ultimate payment for humanity's sins, making forgiveness possible for all who accept it. Jesus' grace extended even to those who betrayed and abandoned him. Peter, who denied him 3 times, was forgiven and restored, John 21 verses 15 to 17. This act of restoration demonstrates that Jesus' pardon isn't limited to absolving guilt, it's about healing and reconciliation. Like Biden's pardon, it challenges the idea that justice and mercy must exist in opposition. The implications of Jesus' pardon reach far beyond individual forgiveness. It paved the way for reconciliation between humanity and God, a theme echoed in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 18. "All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation." This act of grace inspires believers to extend forgiveness to others, mirroring the mercy they've received. Jesus' pardon remains a divisive topic. Some view it as a profound act of love, while others struggle with its seeming unfairness. Why should those who commit terrible sins receive the same grace as those who live upright lives? The parable of the workers in the vineyard, Matthew 20 verses 1 to 16, illustrates this tension, reminding us that grace isn't about fairness, it's about generosity. As we consider the weight of Jesus' forgiveness, it's impossible to ignore the parallels with Biden's decision. Both acts are controversial, disrupt expectations of justice, and invite deeper reflection on the nature of mercy. But while Biden's pardon is confined to the political realm, Jesus' pardon transcends time, culture, and human limitations. Jesus' act of forgiveness carries a profound message. No one is beyond redemption. Whether it's a tax collector like Zacchaeus, Luke 19 verses 1 to 10, or a criminal crucified beside him, Luke 23 verses 39 to 43, Jesus extends grace to all who seek it. This inclusivity challenges societal norms, where forgiveness is often selective and conditional. Grace, by its nature, defies logic. It goes against our instincts for fairness and retribution. In Jesus' time, grace was revolutionary, just as Biden's pardon feels revolutionary in today's political climate. Both acts force us to confront uncomfortable questions about the balance between justice and mercy. The cross stands as the ultimate symbol of forgiveness, reminding us that grace is never cheap. Jesus' sacrifice highlights the immense cost of true forgiveness. In the same way, Biden's decision to pardon Hunter comes with its own cost: political capital, public trust, and personal vulnerability. Both acts remind us that forgiveness often requires great sacrifice. Jesus' pardon redefined humanity's relationship with God. It shifted the focus from earning salvation through works to receiving it through faith. This radical shift is mirrored in Biden's decision to act not as a president bound by public opinion, but as a father moved by love. Both acts challenge traditional systems and provoke questions about the nature of power and authority. As we transition to exploring the parallels between these two stories, reflect on this. What does forgiveness mean to you? Is it an act of grace that transcends justice, or does it undermine accountability? Comment below, and let's continue unpacking the themes that connect Biden's pardon to Jesus' ultimate act of forgiveness. Number 3. Biden and Jesus' approach to forgiveness. At the heart of both Biden's and Jesus' pardons lies the theme of love. Joe Biden's decision was rooted in a father's desire to protect his son, even at the cost of political backlash. Similarly, Jesus' pardon was driven by God's unconditional love for humanity, as expressed in Romans 5 verse 8. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. This love challenges societal norms, often defying what we consider fair or just. The scandal of forgiveness is a recurring theme in both stories. Biden's pardon sparked accusations of hypocrisy and favoritism, while Jesus' acts of grace enraged religious leaders who valued strict adherence to the law. In both cases, forgiveness disrupted expectations, provoking questions about the balance between mercy and justice. Why does forgiveness often feel so scandalous? Grace and justice often feel like opposites, but both pardons reveal their interconnectedness. Biden's decision raised concerns about undermining the legal system, while Jesus' pardon reconciled grace and justice at the cross. Isaiah 53 verse 5 reminds us of this profound reconciliation. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds, we are healed. Both acts demonstrate that true forgiveness carries a cost. The father-son connection adds emotional weight to these stories. Joe Biden's role as both a father and president mirrors the divine relationship between God the Father and Jesus. In both cases, the act of pardon involves profound personal sacrifice, whether it's public criticism or the ultimate cost of death on the cross. These connections highlight the complexity of love and leadership. Both Biden's and Jesus' pardons were acts of grace, but they also required boldness. Biden faced political fallout, while Jesus faced betrayal, suffering, and death. Grace isn't passive, it's a radical choice to prioritize mercy over retribution. This boldness forces us to ask, are we willing to extend forgiveness even when it's unpopular or costly? The public reaction to both pardons reveals a tension between grace and societal expectations. Biden's critics accused him of undermining justice, while Jesus' critics questioned his authority to forgive sins, Mark 2 verse 7. These responses remind us that forgiveness often challenges deeply held beliefs about fairness and accountability. In both stories, forgiveness wasn't just an act, it was a statement. Biden's pardon signaled a rejection of what he viewed as politically motivated persecution. Jesus' pardon declared that grace, not law, is the foundation of God's kingdom. These statements provoke us to consider how acts of forgiveness can shape societal values and spiritual truths. The cost of forgiveness is evident in both narratives. For Biden, it meant sacrificing political credibility. For Jesus, it meant enduring the cross. Luke 9 verse 23 captures the depth of the sacrifice. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Forgiveness, whether human or divine, often demands a high price. Biden's pardon and Jesus' forgiveness both faced intense scrutiny. Critics of Biden questioned his integrity, while skeptics of Jesus doubted his divinity. This scrutiny highlights a universal truth. Acts of grace often invite controversy because they challenge established norms. How do we respond when grace disrupts our expectations? Both acts of forgiveness reveal a profound truth. Grace is unearned. Hunter Biden didn't deserve a pardon in the eyes of many, just as humanity doesn't deserve salvation. Ephesians 2 verses 8-9 emphasizes this. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God. These stories remind us that forgiveness isn't about merit, it's about love. The parallels extend to the reactions of those forgiven. Hunter Biden expressed gratitude and a commitment to sobriety, echoing the transformative impact of grace. Similarly, those forgiven by Jesus, like Zacchaeus, Luke 19 verses 1-10, responded with repentance and changed lives. Grace inspires transformation, inviting us to live differently. The scandal of grace is that it's offered to everyone, regardless of their past. Biden's critics argued that Hunter's crimes warranted punishment, while Jesus' detractors accused him of associating with sinners, Luke 15 verse 2. Both stories challenge us to reflect on our own biases. Who do we believe is worthy of forgiveness? Grace defies logic. It disrupts our sense of fairness and demands that we reevaluate justice. Biden's and Jesus' pardons force us to confront this tension, inviting us to consider whether grace undermines or enhances justice. How do you reconcile these conflicting forces in your own life? The narratives of Biden and Jesus both involve public sacrifice. Biden's decision to pardon Hunter risked alienating voters, while Jesus' sacrifice was a public display of love and forgiveness. Both acts remind us that grace is rarely private. It often requires us to take a stand in the face of criticism. The emotional weight of these stories lies in their personal nature. Biden's pardon reflects the lengths a father will go to protect his child. Jesus' pardon reflects the lengths God will go to save humanity. These acts of love remind us that forgiveness is deeply relational, rooted in connection and compassion. The cultural implications of both pardons are significant. Biden's decision may influence how future presidents use clemency, while Jesus' act of forgiveness reshaped human history. These stories highlight how individual acts of grace can have ripple effects that extend far beyond their immediate context. Both stories invite us to reflect on the nature of power. Biden used his authority as president to pardon his son, while Jesus demonstrated divine power by forgiving sins. These acts challenge traditional notions of power, emphasizing humility and service over domination. The transformative impact of forgiveness is evident in both narratives. Biden's pardon offers Hunter a chance to rebuild his life, while Jesus' forgiveness offers humanity a chance for spiritual renewal. These stories remind us that forgiveness isn't just about erasing the past, it's about creating a new future. The parallels between Biden's and Jesus' pardons invite us to consider how we approach forgiveness in our own lives. Do we extend grace to others, even when it's difficult? How do we balance justice with mercy in our relationships and communities? As we conclude this act, reflect on this. Grace isn't easy, but it's transformative. Both Biden's and Jesus' pardons challenge us to think deeply about love, justice, and forgiveness. What lessons can we learn from these stories, and how will they shape the way we live? Comment below with your thoughts. While Biden's pardon was deeply personal, affecting one individual, Jesus' pardon transcended individual cases and offered grace to all of humanity. Biden's act focused on his son's legal challenges, while Jesus' act addressed the spiritual condition of every person. This contrast highlights the universal scope of divine forgiveness compared to the specific context of human justice. The implications of Biden's pardon are temporal, confined to legal and political arenas. In contrast, Jesus' pardon has eternal significance, redefining humanity's relationship with God. John 3 verse 17 states, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." This highlights the lasting impact of Jesus' act of grace. Biden's pardon is inherently limited by its political nature, bound by the U.S. legal system and subject to public opinion. Jesus' forgiveness, however, is unlimited, offered freely to all who accept it. Ephesians 1 verse 7 emphasizes this boundlessness. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, in accordance with the riches of God's grace. While Biden's pardon drew accusations of favoritism, Jesus' grace is impartial, extended to sinners from all walks of life. Romans 2 verse 11 declares, "For God does not show favoritism." This impartiality contrasts with the human tendency to prioritize personal connections in acts of mercy, as seen in Biden's decision. Biden's act of forgiveness is primarily a legal mechanism, erasing Hunter's criminal convictions. Jesus' forgiveness, however, is holistic, addressing not only sin but also its consequences, offering healing, reconciliation, and restoration. This multidimensional grace challenges us to consider the deeper impact of forgiveness. The cost of Biden's pardon was political credibility, while the cost of Jesus' forgiveness was his life. The cross is a powerful reminder that true forgiveness often comes at a high price. Isaiah 53 verse 6 reflects this truth. The Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. This cost underscores the profound nature of divine grace. The scope of Biden's pardon is constrained by time, as it applies only to Hunter's legal issues. Jesus' forgiveness, however, is timeless, covering sins past, present, and future. Hebrews 10 verse 14 captures this eternal nature. For by one sacrifice he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. Biden's pardon focuses on justice within a flawed human system, aiming to correct perceived injustices. Jesus' pardon transcends human systems, addressing the ultimate question of justice and mercy. This difference challenges us to consider whether human forgiveness can ever fully reflect divine grace. While Biden's pardon may set a political precedent, Jesus' forgiveness established a spiritual precedent, showing that grace is not earned but freely given. This principle, found in Titus 3 verse 5, states, "He saved us, not because of righteous things we had done, but because of his mercy." Biden's decision impacts his family and political legacy, while Jesus' act of forgiveness reshaped history and offers hope to billions. These differing scales of impact invite reflection on the power of individual acts of grace to create ripples far beyond their immediate context. The controversy surrounding Biden's pardon highlights the human struggle with fairness. Similarly, the parable of the prodigal son, Luke 15 verses 11 to 32, reveals the tension between grace and fairness. Both stories force us to confront our own biases and expectations about justice and mercy. Biden's pardon will be remembered as a moment of political and personal significance, while Jesus' forgiveness remains a cornerstone of faith. The enduring nature of Jesus' act challenges us to consider the legacy of forgiveness in our own lives. The public reaction to Biden's pardon reflects the challenges of balancing personal relationships with public responsibility. Jesus' forgiveness also provoked public outcry, as his grace defied religious and cultural norms. These parallels remind us that forgiveness often disrupts societal expectations. Biden's pardon addressed legal consequences, while Jesus' forgiveness addresses spiritual separation from God. This difference emphasizes the transformative power of divine grace, which not only erases guilt but also restores relationship with the Creator. Biden's pardon reflects the limitations of human power, as it can only address specific wrongs. Jesus' forgiveness, however, is unlimited in its scope and transformative in its effects. This contrast highlights the difference between human and divine acts of mercy. While Biden's pardon required a public explanation, Jesus' forgiveness is a personal invitation, extended to each individual. Revelation 3 verse 20 emphasizes this personal nature. "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me." Biden's act of clemency is tied to his role as a father, while Jesus' act of forgiveness reflects his role as Savior. These roles underscore the motivations behind each act, revealing how love drives both human and divine acts of grace. Paragraph 78 * Biden's pardon has sparked debates about justice, while Jesus' forgiveness invites us to accept grace that redefines justice. These differing responses reveal how human and divine perspectives on mercy often conflict, challenging us to rethink our own definitions of fairness. Both acts of forgiveness reveal the power of love to overcome judgment. Biden's decision was driven by paternal love, while Jesus' forgiveness was an expression of God's love for the world. These parallels remind us of the transformative potential of love in human and divine relationships. As we conclude this section, reflect on how Biden's and Jesus' acts of forgiveness challenge our understanding of grace, justice, and mercy. Which story resonates with you more deeply, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's explore these profound themes together. Forgiveness isn't simple. It's layered with emotions, expectations, and costs. Biden's pardon shows the complexities of personal love intersecting with public responsibility. Jesus' forgiveness, on the other hand, presents a radical vision of grace that defies human logic. Both acts challenge us to reflect. How do we balance justice and mercy in our own lives and communities? Biden's decision raises uncomfortable questions about fairness. Many argue that justice was undermined, while others see the pardon as a correction to systemic injustice. Similarly, Jesus' grace is often criticized for being too generous. Do these acts of forgiveness reveal flaws in justice, or its true purpose? Share your perspective. The emotional weight of forgiveness can't be ignored. For Biden, it's the bond of a father willing to risk everything for his son. For Jesus, it's the ultimate act of love, offering his life for humanity. These stories remind us that forgiveness is deeply relational, rooted in love and sacrifice. How do these examples influence your understanding of forgiveness? The public nature of both pardons adds to their complexity. Biden's pardon sparked political backlash, while Jesus' forgiveness provoked outrage among religious leaders. Acts of grace, whether personal or divine, often disrupt societal norms. Why does forgiveness so often lead to controversy? Let us know in the comments. The cost of forgiveness is another theme both stories share. Biden's decision may cost him politically, while Jesus' forgiveness cost him his life. This underscores the reality that forgiveness is rarely free. It demands sacrifice. How do you view the costs of forgiveness in your own life? Is it worth it? Both pardons reveal the power of grace to transform lives. Biden's pardon gives Hunter a chance to rebuild, while Jesus' grace offers humanity a path to redemption. These stories remind us that forgiveness isn't just about erasing the past, it's about creating a new future. How do you see grace transforming lives today? Biden's pardon highlights the tension between personal responsibility and systemic injustice, while Jesus' forgiveness addresses humanity's ultimate separation from God. Both acts challenge us to think deeply about accountability and restoration. How do we navigate these tensions in our own pursuit of justice? The reactions to both pardons reflect our collective struggle with fairness. Biden's critics argue his decision undermines justice, while Jesus' detractors claimed his forgiveness disregarded the law. These responses reveal a deeper question. Is forgiveness ever truly fair, or does it transcend fairness? Share your thoughts. Forgiveness isn't just a gift, it's a challenge. Biden's decision challenges political norms, while Jesus' grace challenges spiritual paradigms. Both acts ask us to confront our own biases and assumptions about who deserves forgiveness. How do these stories challenge your views on grace? The parallels between Biden's and Jesus' pardons are striking, but the differences are just as important. Biden's pardon is finite and specific, while Jesus' forgiveness is infinite and universal. Reflect on how these differences shape your understanding of justice and mercy. Which resonates more with you? Grace is a gift that often provokes resistance. Biden's pardon was seen by many as an abuse of power, while Jesus' forgiveness was seen as blasphemy. Yet, both acts reveal the transformative power of mercy. Why do you think grace often triggers such strong reactions? Let's discuss in the comments. As we look at these two stories, we're reminded that forgiveness isn't just a moment, it's a process. Biden's decision reflects the ongoing challenge of balancing personal and public roles. Jesus' forgiveness invites us into a lifelong journey of grace. How do you approach forgiveness in your life? The legacy of forgiveness is profound. Biden's pardon will influence his political legacy, while Jesus' grace continues to shape faith and history. These stories remind us that acts of mercy have ripple effects far beyond their initial context. What legacy of forgiveness are you building in your life? Both Biden's and Jesus' pardons force us to reflect on the tension between justice and grace. They invite us to consider how we navigate this tension in our own lives. How do we extend grace without undermining justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As we close this reflection, ask yourself, what does forgiveness mean to you? Is it an act of love, a disruption of fairness, or something more profound? Both Biden's and Jesus' acts challenge us to rethink our understanding of grace. Join the conversation. Your perspective matters. We've journeyed through two stories of forgiveness, one personal, one divine. Biden's pardon of Hunter reflects the complexities of justice and family, while Jesus' act of grace reveals the transformative power of unconditional love. Both stories challenge us to think deeply about mercy, justice, and their place in our lives. These stories aren't just about the past, they're about the present and future. They ask us to consider how we approach forgiveness in our relationships, communities, and society. Are we willing to extend grace, even when it's difficult? What lessons can we learn from these acts of mercy? As you reflect on Biden's and Jesus' pardons, ask yourself, how do you balance justice and grace in your own life? How do you respond when forgiveness disrupts your expectations? These are questions that invite deep reflection and honest discussion. Let's continue this conversation together. If this video has challenged or inspired you, let us know. Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective adds value to this ongoing dialogue about forgiveness, justice, and grace. Together, we can explore these profound themes and their impact on our lives. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Forgiveness is never easy, but it's always transformative. As we move forward, let's strive to extend grace to others, just as we've been shown grace. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and stay committed to exploring the power of mercy and love.